Welcome to Beyond County Lines with Daniel and Olivia. Today we're going to talk to our RECC department. Go ahead and kick this off, Olivia.
Good afternoon. Thank you for meeting with us. Today we are here with our staff and leadership from the RECC. We'll start with Roberto Lujan.
I'm Roberto Lujan. I'm the Regional Emergency Communications Center Director.
Hello, I am Jennifer Ortha, and I'm the Department Administrator.
I'm Deputy Director Frankie Gonzalez.
Well, thank you all for meeting with us today for a special podcast feature. Today we're going to be talking about our recent campaign, which has been called Dial, Connect, Protect, When to Choose 911. Roberto, can you tell us a little bit about the inception of this campaign and, what you hope the constituents to get out of this outreach initiative?
Before you say that, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Right out of the gate, what does RECC stand for?
It's the Regional Emergency Communications Center. We are the dispatch center for emergency and non-emergency calls for law enforcement, fire, medical for County of Santa Fe, City of Santa Fe, and Town of Edgewood.
Wow. And that was unrehearsed, folks. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and answer her question.
So can you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. So tell us a little bit about the inception of the 911 campaign, when to dial 911, and what's going on in the center that you want to let the constituents know about when to call and when not to call.
Sure. So we pulled some data. Basically, we have to provide an annual report to the state of how many 911 calls we receive each year. And in pulling that data, I noticed that there was a big discrepancy between the amount of non-emergency calls versus the 911 calls that we received. For example, from January 2023 to July of 2023, we handled, which means we answered, a total of 223,997 calls from the public. And of those calls, only 102,349 of them were actually dispatched on, meaning that they got a response from either fire, law enforcement, or animal control. So that would mean that 121,648 calls were unrelated to services that RECC provides.
That's crazy. That's over 50%.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes. So it's when I noticed that, I realized that we need to do some public education and awareness of when to call the RECC and what services we provide and the proper numbers to call for what the public is looking for.
Wonderful. So maybe you can give us an example. What are some of the types of calls that you all receive that are not emergency related in regards to fire, police, or medical services?
Sure. So one of the main calls that we receive from the public is requests for police reports. So that means they've already called RECC. They've already got a response from a police officer. They've already filed a police report and they just want a copy of it. We do not house any records of that sort in RECC, and they should be calling the police records, either city or county police records, to obtain that information instead of dispatch. And we end up transferring a lot of those calls daily.
I'll have the number displayed on the bottom of the screen, but for the podcasters or the listeners, could you just say the non-emergency line?
Oh, sure. For RECC, our non-emergency line is 505-428-3700.
Awesome. Thank you.
And for the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office records, that's 505-986-2469.
And City of Santa Fe police records is 505-955-5751.
Wow, awesome. That's a lot of numbers to
I have that one memorized. That's how often we get calls for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was in an accident once. I was reading the press release, and I was in an accident 12 years ago, probably. And nobody was injured. I T-boned somebody. They pulled out of a parking lot. I T-boned them. I had a little sports car. I was going through my midlife crisis, and I hit them so hard, their truck lifted up. It landed on my hood for a second. He flipped me off, and then he drove away. And I called 911 because and maybe I'm misunderstanding the paper, but I shouldn't have because nobody was injured.
So anytime there's airbag deployment, you're blocking traffic, there's fluids down from the crash,
okay,
it's appropriate to call 911 because those are emergent circumstances.
Okay.
If you're blocking a roadway, of course, call 911 and let us know, I'm putting other people in danger. My car's immobile and I'm blocking a roadway. So that would be appropriate to call 911 for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was very interesting about that, and I'm sure it happens with every accident, the guy took off And I was in shock. So I was just sitting in my car, just not knowing what to do. Like 6 people came up to me. They said, I got the license plate number. I called 911. So 6 people called 911 though. Yes. So I was like, oh my gosh, you guys must get that all the time where somebody sees an accident and multiple dispatchers are just getting the same phone call. How do you handle that?
Well, so what happens is we get a major accident, say Cerrillos and St. Francis, for example. And we have a certain amount of 911 lines that we can answer at once and a certain amount of staff in the room that we can answer. So when those lines fill up with everybody on the phone in our RECC taking the calls roll over to Sandoval County. So then we're now impacting another dispatch center with an overload of calls, and they're all related to the same situation. The best thing to do, and it's hard to coordinate this, but if people can remember, if you're on the scene, notify people, hey, I've already got 911 on the line. There's no reason for anybody else to call right now. I'm here with the patients. I'm here with the people that are injured. I'm right here at the scene. I've got it under control. Because, again, we get inundated with these calls and someone else is having an emergency unrelated and we can't get to them because we're just full of calls for the same situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if it's like after the fact of an accident, say, can you hear? Yeah. Hear me? If it's after the fact, give us a call on a non-emergency line. So if it's 911 and we do have like a hit and run like you just had, any information is good, because which direction do they go? Like, can we catch up to them? The officers in the area where we can get them. Yeah. So any little bit of information will help, because it could be a drunk driver. So, so drunk drivers is a big thing here in New Mexico too. So, I mean, if it's, just get the information as much as you can and give us a call.
Okay.
Which helps a lot.
Okay. So that's kind of funny. It made me think of this made me think of a thought that I had. So I scroll through TikTok and social media quite a bit, more than I'd like to tell everybody. But I see a lot of accidents or these crazy situations happening, and most people aren't calling 911 because they're just all trying to capture it. And I'm just like, my thought was, somebody should be designated, like, I'll call, you guys film, I'm going to call 911, you guys all film. Yeah. But it was just a random thought.
Yeah, and to add to Frankie's comment, the most important thing is your location, and that's the first thing you should give us. Say you're on a call and your battery's at 1% and you need an ambulance. If we don't know where you are, and the first thing you say is, I'm having a heart attack, and then your phone disconnects, we're not going to be able to find you. Always location first, no matter what. That's
a good point. I think you brought that up to Olivia and I when we did a video for you for RECC a few months ago, where you said a lot of people are under the wrong impression that you know where we are because of movies and TV, and really you don't. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's correct. I mean, we do have GPS coordinates of people, and it plots them on the map, and they're usually accurate.
Okay.
But there can be errors with the phone towers that day, or our systems could be having errors that day. We need to identify where you're at verbally. We should always confirm that, even if you're plotting on a map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards to medical emergencies, if somebody, tell us a little bit about when in a scenario should somebody call 911 in a medical emergency?
I mean, if you're ill enough to believe that you need 911, absolutely call us. I mean, we do get non-emergent calls on 911 that are medical related. But like, for example, we had someone call because they had stubbed their toe, literally stubbed their toe, and wanted to go to the hospital for it. But we don't know what's going on the other end of the phone. So if they thought it was urgent enough for them to call 911, we take that seriously. Any medical emergency, I believe, constitutes a 911 call. We're okay with that. If you feel like your life is threatened, or that you have a potential life-threatening injury or illness and you need to go to the hospital, that is the time to call 911. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. And I think this would be inclusive of, onset symptoms of a heart attack. If they're suspected to be having an overdose. This would also, shortness of breath, people who may be unconscious. Please, everybody out there, don't hesitate to dial 911 when you see that somebody in your custody or your family or your children seem to be having a medical emergency. These are cases when you definitely need to dial 911 because our paramedics have all the proper equipment and tools that others may not have in responding to these kinds of emergencies.
Absolutely. And calling the non-emergency line would delay a response because, again, it is the non-emergency line. So we're fielding a lot of just questions and basic calls that are emergencies on those lines. And so if you need to get through right away, you should call 911.
So what if it's a Saturday night and I'm just trying to get to rest, I work the next day, and there's just the neighbors next door, they're partying really loud. They got the music, they're blasting, there's lots of disturbances. Maybe there's illegal activity. Do I call 911?
No. If it's not life-threatening, you don't hear gunshots being fired, you don't hear fighting, you just hear a loud party, that would be the non-emergency number.
So what do I do? There's a noise complaint. Who do I call?
You call 505-428-3700, speak to the dispatcher and let them know you'd like to report a noise complaint, disorderly conduct.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I also had a girlfriend the other day. We were at a concert and she had her purse stolen. In those kinds of situations, when property has been damaged or is stolen, do we call 911 in those emergencies as well?
That's going to be an emergency too. So, anything petty like a car getting broken into, unless it's in progress, you could probably call 911. We'll accept that. Anything in progress, we'll accept on 911. If someone's breaking into a vehicle, that suspect possibly might have a gun on them. So, you never know. Gun, knife, any kind of weapon. So, it just depends. So, but when I can do that.
Yeah, like you said, anything in progress or you feel is a life-threatening emergency, of course, call 911. After the fact, things like you lost a purse and you're calling the next day, that can be reported on a non-emergency line. The city of Santa Fe also has an online reporting system at santafenm.gov. Under the Living Here section of their tab, you can go to file a police report, and that's a non-emergency. It'll direct you for what type, larceny, after the fact crash, different situations that are reportable on their online reporting system. And I believe the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office will be implementing one in the near future as well.
There's something I want to add. This goes for like Santa Fe, anybody that's calling in to our non-emergency lines or emergency lines whatsoever. We're not the ones going out there. So we get a lot of people calling into our 911 centers for medical, police, whatever they're calling in for, and they're thinking we're the ones going out there and they're telling us to hurry up. We're on the phone trying to get as much information for our law enforcement, our fire department, and our medical. So when we're on the phone with somebody, anybody calls in, we're just gathering information for the people going out there, right? Responders. So when we are trying to get as much information as we can, that's for the paramedics, the police officers, wherever. So when they say to hurry up, we're not the ones going out there. Just throw that in there.
Yeah, a lot of times the public thinks that they're speaking directly to an officer or a paramedic, and it's important for the public to understand that we're the information gatherers, we're the data gatherers, and we can provide life-saving instructions if we're given the right information from the caller. So, I understand the panic. It's very scary to be in a situation where someone has just collapsed and maybe isn't conscious or breathing. And we get a lot of people who are saying, just get someone out here, and they hang up. We have to call them back repeatedly to get more information. It's best to stay on the line, and it's hard to do, but do your best to stay calm because we do have instructions to help save people's lives if you're willing to listen to them.
So all of the dispatchers, they're trained, right, to provide some kind of medical guidance. Can you tell us a little bit more about the training that your staff undergo?
Sure. So upon initial orientation and hiring, they attend training internally with our training coordinator as well as some of our staff. And then within 1 year, they have to attend the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy to get their public safety telecommunicators certification. And it's a 3-week course where they have to actually board at the Department of Public Safety and live there for 3 weeks. And they get basic law enforcement training, call taking training, information on the National Crime Information Center, which is the database where we enter warrants, stolen vehicles, lost items, stuff like that. And then in addition to that, they get training from the International Academies of Emergency Medical Dispatch, IAEMD. So, and in that training, they get CPR training, how to give those instructions over the phone. Narcan, how to give those instructions over the phone. What to do if someone's having a seizure. What to do if someone's having a heart attack. EpiPen instructions to provide information for people having an allergic reaction. You name it. You can think of it, you name it. They have that training, and it's a protocol that they follow. That's software in our computer. So they are following verbatim instructions from a certified medical facility providing those instructions.
Wow. And does that happen when you first get an employee? They have to do all those within the first 6 months or first year?
So for our current positions, ECS basic, that person just goes to law enforcement academy, and then if they want to advance to ECS 1 advanced, that's when they get their medical certification.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many staff members how many vacancies do you have right now?
Right now we're at...
You're putting me on the spot, Daniel. I want to say that at this point in time, we are at 20 vacancies.
20.
But we do have one that is set to start on the 9th. So really, they're going to be starting on Monday the 11th. And they're going to be joining us as a team leader. But so they'll put us at 19.
Awesome. And not to put you on the spot again for specific numbers, but do you know what the starting pay is for somebody that comes in brand new?
$22.46 is the starting pay, and that's someone with no experience. They start and they get on the job training, so that's someone straight out of high school. That's all that they need is their high school diploma, really. So $22.46.
All right, I'm going to look at the camera and say, did you hear that? $22.46. That's great pay for a starting job. So go to santafecounty.nm.gov/jobs and apply today. I'm not ending the podcast. I just wanted to plug that in.
I just want to also give Jennifer an opportunity to talk about, your experience working in RECC. What would you tell any of the constituents or residents who are not having a medical emergency, and what are other resources available for them to reach out to?
Sure. So I have to throw this out. My favorite thing, it's really not my favorite, but I think one of the calls that we get a lot is people calling in on 911 after we have an influx of 911 calls because there's an accident or maybe like a medical emergency somewhere. We have, a bunch of different people calling in, and we keep answering the calls, of course, as they come in. And at some point in time, you get a call where they're saying, this isn't an emergency, but nobody was answering the non-emergency line. So the reason that is because we are answering those emergency calls. So our 911 lines will always take precedence over the non-emergency line. So we promise we're not just ignoring you. We are just answering the 911 lines prior to getting to the non-emergency line. So I think just a major point or something that I would ask of the public is to just be patient with us. Again, we're not ignoring you. We're just dealing with our emergency lines, whether that be an accident, medical emergencies. There's a lot of things that can happen, and a lot of things happen at once sometimes. So our emergency lines will take precedence over the non-emergency.
And that's coming right out of the mouth of the employee of the quarter for Santa Fe County, so it's credible. Just kidding. She really is. I have one thing here. I'm looking at the list of to call the non-emergency, and it's vehicle collision and private property. And I'm just curious on why.
So if the vehicle collision on private property does not involve injury or it's not a hit and run situation, the City of Santa Fe Police will actually refer you to report that online at santafenm.gov. Under the Living Here tab, file a police report, and then you'll see a drop down to pick what type of report. Private property collision. They actually will not respond to a private property crash unless there's injury or it's a hit and run.
Wow. And that private property could be just like a grocery store parking lot?
Whole Foods parking lot, you name it. As long as it's a private business, that's private property. And you're in their parking lot.
Okay, so that's good to know, actually. And if somebody gets in an accident or some sort of collision on private property, they should still exchange insurance information, but report it on that website?
Absolutely. Yes, they can both report it actually, and just if they're unsure if the other person's actually going to report it or not.
Okay.
And they'll be able to identify, well, this is the same report, and they'll merge them or do what they got to do on the police end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Private property story to share.
Let's hear it.
So my oldest son is 4 years old. When he was about 4 weeks old, we went to go do not only his follow-up appointment, but my follow-up appointment. So it was a C-section. So we were at the Presbyterian, and our appointments were about an hour apart from each other. So we finished the first appointment. We were going to go grab some lunch. Well, I was going to grab lunch. And I was heading out of the parking lot, and I was hit. And I was hit so hard within the Presbyterian hospital parking lot that it caused my vehicle to spin a few times, all the airbags to go off. And it was, the car was a total loss. It was scary at the moment, but now that I think back, I'm like, that's so funny because they had to send out the fire department because not only did the airbags deploy, I had a 4-week-old baby, but I just think it's funny because we were in the parking lot of a hospital. And again, not all private property accidents are the same. So if there are any sort of injuries or airbag deployment or things of that nature, then we can definitely send them out. But that's not always going to be the case. So
one of the main reasons we do end up sending officers out to a private property crash in the city is that the parties are arguing with each other. So that would be another reason to call us. If you feel, again, you're arguing and the persons may have a weapon or you don't know if they do or don't, definitely call us, and 911 is appropriate in that matter. So we definitely don't want to discourage people from calling 911. We just want you to call 911 for the right reasons and the non-emergency line for the right reasons, and call the other resources for things that RECC doesn't provide.
Absolutely. I think that's really important to emphasize. Here at Santa Fe County and RECC, we're here to serve all of you. And so if there's any discernment or concern in your mind, if it is a valid emergency, just call 911. Part of this campaign is not to deter people from utilizing these services. We're here to take care of you, to serve and protect. But please use your discernment. Go through our checklists about when or not to call 911. We're also going to be releasing a social media campaign regarding this initiative. So please just be a little bit more, use your discernment when you're going to call 911.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're crucial to the public safety. And if we're tied up with requests for calling records or finding out if their dog is in the animal shelter or not, ties up resources that could be used to help save someone's life. And that's what we're trying to educate people on. We're hiring. And again, if you're looking for a career change, this is the place to start. And if you're looking for a career in public safety, this is the place to start. For example, when I started as a dispatcher in 2006, my intent was to become either a firefighter or a police officer. I ended up loving dispatch so much that I stayed where I was. And here I am now as the director. So, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Absolutely. Well, thank all of you for taking your time out of your day to meet with us. And we appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio Beyond County Lines with Daniel and Olivia.